Hello, Phil Crowshaw again from Passions, and in this episode, we welcome entertainment legend Giles Cooper to the show. Okay, and a very warm welcome to Passions. And today it really is an honour, and I'm not just saying that, it's an honour to be welcoming Giles Cooper. The legend of entertainment that is Giles Cooper has joined me today. And I'm quite excited about this because if you read his biography, we were just saying before we came on air, we could be on for 4 hours, probably just talking about the band tours that he's been involved in and managed. And maybe that's another interview, and he might have to tell a few stories that would change the names to protect the guilty, I suspect. So, Giles, very warm welcome to Passions. Great to have you on. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and more importantly, what exactly is your passion?
Thanks, Phil. Good to meet you. I'm a concert promoter, show producer. I'm chairman of the Royal Variety Charity. I guess to sum up a passion, fundamentally, I guess it's the love of music and wanting to share what music does to all of us with other people, and to create, I suppose, the perfect show, create the perfect concert, the perfect event, which you never end up achieving, but you keep aspiring to eventually create that great show. But what drives it is the absolute love of music, love of the arts in general, and wanting to share that with other people, which above money, I think really is what drives you. I mean, obviously we all have to pay the bills, but it's about creating that great perfect concert, that perfect theatre show, that perfect event.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was going to ask you that actually, whether you'd actually achieved it yet. But would you say you're a detail person? Are you a stickler for detail? If you said that seemed to be the perfect show, but then that light didn't quite come on, or it was flickering just at the start, are you a real detail guy?
Definitely, and that's sort of part of, I suppose, what makes people tick in entertainment. It takes a little while to get over the euphoria of a particular evening, because after the evening or on the evening, you think it's absolutely great. But then once you kind of get through that, you then look back on it and think, oh, I really wish we'd done that, or I wish we'd had that artist in front of that artist, or yes, like you say, the lights have been different, or whatever it is, you're very self-critical. But I suppose that's what drives you. That's what drives you to create a better show, and to work with great artists, and to create that perfect event, to move on to the next one and the next one.
Brilliant. So where did the passion come from then? Did you kind of almost like, not to be too graphic, come out the womb humming a few tunes, or was it something that developed in later years?
Quite early on. I mean, I originally was a musician in bands, and so all through my kind of school period, all I wanted to be was in a band. It was a classic indie guitar 4-piece. But curiously, when I look back, when I was in school, it was the Live Aid thing that Bob Geldof had created, and 1985, I think it was. And at school, I created our own Live Aid fundraising event in that same summer. And I remember we made £680, which I was absolutely over the moon with, considering that most of the school kids had sort of 20p in their pocket. And looking back, and now my involvement with charity and entertainment, that kind of was almost a kind of mark in the sand, in that I actually preferred the organising of it and the raising of the money, and showcasing all the local bands and so on. And it's funny how those little events early on in your life actually end up shaping it.
That's a great answer. So just give us a feel for it. It's okay. You're allowed to name drop. Okay, I didn't say that at the start. You're allowed to name drop all you like on this show. So what sort of bands, what sort of artists have you worked with over the years?
Oh, Phil, it's a huge cross section. I mean, it's from rock bands like Placebo to artists like Noel Gallagher, Van Morrison, Nile Rodgers, country shows, Chris Christopherson. I mean, it goes on. I mean, with the Royal Variety Show itself, I mean, the list is endless. I mean, we're in Blackpool this year, as you know. Last time we were in Blackpool, I was looking back at the artists we had then, and we had Lady Gaga, Michael Bublé, Peter Kay. It was Bette Midler was another one, and so the range of artists was huge, and it's great to work with top artists because, you know, you mentioned perfection. I mean, those type of artists care about every detail, and it's great to work with people because you care about every detail too. And so it's whether it's, you know, shows that we've done in regional theatre have been particularly great. We've worked with a lot of BBC TV presenters where they'll tell their life story and what makes what's passionate for them. So people like Simon Reeve, Dan Snow, and you're working with them in creating the show and trying to draw from them what's interesting about their lives, what makes them tick, because ultimately that will then transfer to the audience. And that's a great thing about the process, is the creative element of getting the show together, and it can be as simple as a one-man show.
Do you think that the younger people have got any idea how much dedication, sacrifice, and effort will be required to get to the top? Or is there an element of what I call almost like La La Land view of I'm going to be famous and rich? Do they actually really appreciate what's involved?
Probably not, but does that matter? I don't know, really. I think ultimately it comes down to what your program's about and its passion. And if someone's got a passion for something, a real passion, it's not really about the fame and the money and so on. But although that's great, obviously, it, you know, or can be great, you know, it's more about, this is all I want to do, you know. And when I sort of became more involved with entertainment and it became a career, you know, you realise that the majority of people in the entertainment business, and in fact Nielsen did a survey on this. In fact, it was only 4.8% of the industry earn above the average UK wage. And that kind of tells you, doesn't it, immediately that the vast majority of people do it for passion. And, you know, whether it's dancing, whether it's telling jokes, making people laugh, or composing a great song or a great piece of music, it's not about money or fame necessarily, because for most people, that reward is not there. It's about real passion, about real kind of, this is all I want to do, you know, and the buzz it gives me is what it's about.
And is it fair to say, I mean, we're conducting this interview now in November. We are still in the midst of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Is it fair to say that a lot of people in the entertainment industry, which you're obviously very, very, very involved, do you think there's an element of it that tests their passion with this? Because they're obviously struggling, a lot of them. They're obviously under a lot of pressure. Do you think the depth and breadth of passion that they've got is key to that survival process before we come out the other end? Oh,
definitely. You know, it's been the most unbelievable year. I mean, I don't think there's probably been any year like it, because even, you know, if you read up about the Second World War, entertainment was such a big part, you know, for entertainers to entertain troops, to entertain people at home. It became part of the spirit of keeping everyone going. Whereas this has just completely destroyed it. And it's the most unprecedented. I know that's a horrible word that everyone keeps using, but there's never been a year like it. And you're right, for people to keep going, it's so hard. I mean, people have to eat, people have to live. And so you're going to try and pay the bills however you possibly can. And if that means working at the local supermarket, then you'll have to do it. But for people that have the deep passion, nothing can take that away. You know, that will survive, and people will get through it. And what's been great, I think, is the way people have found different ways, you know, whether it be podcasts, whether it be streaming live concerts, whether it be comedians putting out jokes every day, you know, to somehow get their art out there. it's been great to see that happen with the ones that are really passionate.
Yeah, and I think that's true. It's also interesting the fact that the artists, as it were, the people that perform, they're always at the front of the stage, etc. They tend to get a lot of the, I suppose, the press, the media coverage. How has it impacted on the industry, on the businesses that supply to these people? I'm thinking of even people who provide, or companies that provide, lighting rigs or cleaning the theatres, and I take it it's been devastating across the board.
It has, Phil. It's unbelievable. If you think how many people are involved in, say, even just our outdoor concerts. We do concerts in the grounds of stately homes over summer, and so you're talking 10 to 15,000 people. But the amount of infrastructure that goes into that, like you say, lighting people, staging people, fencing people, toilet people, it's unbelievable amount of people involved. And of course, the vast majority of those have had nothing at all. Ironically, security people seem to have been drafted in by a lot of the supermarkets and things to kind of organise the lines of people social distancing and that kind of thing, particularly in the first lockdown. But overall, it's been absolutely devastating for people. And now that we've got the news of the vaccines and hopefully some really encouraging results once they go through the processes, next year hopefully will be a bumper year where everybody can not only sort of get back to normal, but hopefully make up for what's been a really tough one.
Yeah, I think in 2021, hopefully, fingers crossed everywhere, it's probably one of those years that everybody will look back on, and it's almost like, where were you in 2020? Like, where were you when Elvis Presley died? Where were you in 2020? And I think there will be an element of that. And I understand, the little bird tells me that you've been involved in helping us to get to this vaccination success by being a tester. I was going to say a lab mouse, but that's a bit derogatory. So you've obviously been a tester. I'm assuming, you can tell me now, but I'm assuming it's not gone too badly, because I can't see 3 ears growing out the top of your head or anything like that. So how's it been, and how did you get involved in it?
Yeah, well, as chairman of the Royal Variety Charity, we own and operate our own care home for elderly entertainers called Brinsworth House, which is based in Twickenham. And when lockdown started, it was kind of being right at the cutting edge. Frontline's the wrong word, because as a volunteer, I wasn't working in the care home itself, but certainly speaking and helping every day with the staff we had to try and get through it. And we were, like everybody else, doing our best to source PPE and testing kits and so on. But what became so obvious and so frustrating was not being able to help any more than that, and it's I think for everybody, we all felt so helpless, didn't we? This kind of invisible enemy, as Boris kept saying, and Boris kept saying, we're at war and so on, and of course, in the old days when we were at war, you'd volunteer and you'd be given a gun and sent to the front line. This was kind of a bit different, and it felt like, kind of volunteering. I heard it was a news thing on the radio that were asking for volunteers, particularly men in my kind of age group, which you may recall at the time seemed to be suffering particularly badly, to volunteer for this trial that Oxford University were doing. And it was a kind of around the time of VE Day. And I remember somebody on the radio saying something along the lines of, you gave your today, it's now our turn to fight for your tomorrow. And it kind of really struck a chord, that. And particularly dealing with elderly people at the care home and so on. And numerous people that the charity helps through beneficiaries and grant schemes. And so just think, well, why not? And they make it very clear at the start that you don't get paid anything. You're doing it for medical research. You'll be given a full medical, which I thought, well, why not? I've always intended to get myself a full medical, and until you get that done. And so once all that was cleared, just went ahead with it. You don't know from the start if you're being given the actual vaccine itself or a placebo. It's all part of the research as to how the scientists figure it all out. But quite a commitment, as it turned out. It was, obviously the test to start with, check that you're fit and healthy, and then, various blood samples you have to give. Obviously, then you get given the vaccine and a swab test for COVID every single week. So that's been every single week since about May, and still doing them, so that they know, who's catching it and so on. And then going back each month, I think it is. It depends on which period of it, but they had to have a booster vaccine. And each month going back, they take blood from you to check if you've got antibodies, all that kind of stuff, which you don't mind doing. And to get those that announcement the other day from the Oxford University AstraZeneca thing that it looks like it works. I mean, it's just fantastic, and just to feel as though you've made a small contribution to helping what potentially could help, millions of people around the world. It's great to have been involved, and fingers crossed it gets through all the regulators, and it really does make the difference.
Absolutely. And what's been very interesting, actually, Giles, doing these interviews, which is all about that, almost like researching and investigating as much as anything, the whole passions thing. And obviously, as time goes on and you do more interviews, you're always looking at patterns or certain conclusions you start to come to. And one of the things that's very interesting is that what I see a lot with virtually everybody is actually a passion to make a difference, and I'm seeing that in this interview today. It seems that your passion actually is to make a difference. Is that a reasonable observation?
I think that's right, Phil. It's why be involved in any charity, really? I suppose and the Royal Variety Charity is a charity that helps people, whether it be in the care home or grants throughout the UK to people who work in entertainment. And why do it? It takes an enormous amount of time. I don't get paid for it. Great fun being an executive producer on the Royal Variety Show. That again goes back to the passion for entertainment. But why do it? And the reason for doing it is seeing what a difference it makes, and we filmed a little piece for the show this year, interviewing grant beneficiaries from all different parts of the UK. There's a dancer, there's somebody who works at the Royal Ballet, there's a theatre producer, and understanding and seeing their interviews, and hearing what difference the Royal Variety Charity made to their lives, it kind of makes it all worthwhile. And you're right, that's the reason to make a difference and to give back in a way for someone like me, to give back to the entertainment industry that thankfully has been good to me so far, and a way of giving back, and making a difference by giving back.
And do you ever? Obviously, I know you've worked with so many people. It's a who's list of the rich and famous and everything in between. Did you ever stop to think at all? How did this happen? Or do you just take it for granted now because you just had that many over the years?
I did think that once, and particularly it was the 2012 Royal Variety performance, which was at the Albert Hall, and it was the 100th anniversary of the show. And I hadn't long been chairman. I think it was second or third year, and I was sat in the Royal Box with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, and watching a fantastic show as it happened, and just thinking, how did I get box with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh? It was just such a surreal experience. And of course, the spotlight's on the box from the whole auditorium, and 5,000 odd people. You just think, how did this happen? But also a great feeling. One that you've kind of in some way, achieved something in your life, but also that you're making a difference by raising a lot of money for people who need it.
Yeah, no, I just think it's fantastic. Actually, funnily enough, I did watch a video clip from an interview I was doing with Richard Lehman from Tall Ships, which is a charity that helps disadvantaged youngsters go onto ships. And they've been having some challenges, obviously, like everybody else. And he gave me a video clip, and I was watching these young people talking about the difference it had made to their lives. And I have to say, it surprised me. I found it quite moving. it was just actually seeing what you said there about the, the ballet dancers. It's the real people that it impacts on that you don't always see necessarily. You see you see the marketing spiel, if you like, but you don't always see the real people behind it that are being helped.
That's right, and that, going back to entertainment, that's, that hundreds of people are involved in producing a show. You'll see big stars, as somebody in the audience or a TV viewer, but you won't see the hundreds of people backstage, the technical people, and all this kind of support people, support people in a venue, whether it be makeup artists, front of house, a huge number of people. And it tends to be those people that are on the lower wages, and that need help. But without them, there's no show.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Okay, well, you mentioned the Royal Variety performance a couple of times, and as I said before we came on air, I'm quite excited at the announcement that Blackpool's going to be involved in the Royal Variety this year. Possibly because I'm a northerner myself. I actually live just 30 miles from Blackpool, so it was absolutely fantastic news. And is that something you're quite proud of, that you've helped to take it to Blackpool, and out of the London bubble, I suppose, in a way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Blackpool's the undisputed home of variety in Britain. We've been there twice before, 1955 and 2009. The plan was always to go to Blackpool this year, despite, long before the COVID crisis came in. And ITV particularly, they like to go to venues outside of London. Obviously ITV's made up of different areas in itself as a company, and the plan, was to always go there to visit again. Blackpool is a fantastic place and such a heritage with entertainment, as you know, as much as anywhere really, certainly in Britain. And in fact, your friend Spencer Phillips, he was a big part. We were struggling to find a venue out of London that had a big enough capacity for the show. The big thing, firstly, is that for a variety show, you have to have a very deep stage, because of all the set changes and changes that happen, which might appear kind of seamless to the audience. But of course, when one artist is performing, the next artist is getting ready behind the curtain, and so on. And so you need a very deep stage. And the Blackpool Opera House is, in fact, I think it's the biggest stage in Europe. Certainly,
wow.
In depth, it's the biggest in the UK. But for the charity, it's also about the numbers in the audience. ITV, who are great at organising and helping with the show, found a theatre, but unfortunately it was only 1,200 capacity in the Midlands, and after camera positions and security positions, that would mean only probably about 900 tickets to the charity. Whereas the Blackpool Opera House, you're talking sort of 3,500 to 4,000 people that we could have got in there. And so when we originally were planning it back in January time, Spencer was a great help. The people at the venue, Michael and Donna, were fantastic, because we had to move shows out, because the Royal Variety, we need 7 days. Load in rehearsals, technical rehearsals, artist rehearsals, and then load at the show, and then load out, of course. And so it's a big chunk of time for any theatre or venue to find in their diary, particularly in that year. So we're talking, this was January, and we were looking at November. And so the theatre and promoters and show producers were all really helpful in moving shows for us to create this 7-day window for us, which everybody did. And then, of course, a month or so later, the lockdown happened. So we weren't even sure the show was going ahead. And then it became planning for a socially distanced show. So we were planning to have bubbles of 6, 2 meters apart from each other. Did intricate plans with it, and the risk assessments and so on that needs to be done. And that all looked good, and we'd end up with probably about 850-900 people. But then, of course, the more recent lockdown, the second national lockdown has meant that, of course, we can't have a physical audience at all, but we can beat the virus in our own way, and we're going to stream the show to a limited number of select audience, if you like, of charity supporters, Blackpool's local NHS, emergency services and key workers. And so there'll be a live virtual audience watching the unedited full show on the night, which is this Sunday. And then, of course, ITV will then edit that show for television broadcast, which will happen in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And then, of course, broadcast throughout the world over the Christmas and New Year period. And I think people in the UK sometimes forget that it's an enormous show around the world. It's last year it was something in the region of 155 million viewers. And in countries like Australia, New Zealand, it's actually shown in the afternoon of Christmas Day on the main channels. In countries like Canada and Norway, it's shown after the chimes of midnight every year. And so it's this huge British iconic institution, which we should all be proud of.
I mean, that is absolutely amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't realise that. I thought it was a very UK centric thing. So I would have never known that either. Okay, well, I'm very conscious of time, and I know I can be guilty of doing these interviews and going on forever because I'm just really genuinely interested in people's stories. I don't know where it's come from, but it's just in me. It must be my mother or father or something else. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now and just ask you a final question then. You've had an amazing career. I don't think anybody could possibly argue that. Have you got any top tips about what you've learned throughout that career in terms of what people can take on board, maybe mistakes you've made or things you've learned as a result of doing things that would help people to achieve the sorts of things that you've achieved in your career?
Oh, that's a tough one, Phil. I mean, I think if you go back to actually what your channel's about and, passions, as long as you find a passion for something, and it doesn't matter what it is, as I'm sure you've found with all the people you've spoken to, as long as you've got that passion, somehow you can make it work. And I would say that for people never to be too transfixed as to what part of an industry they want to be in, but what job title or whatever it is they want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I found very often that say somebody, all I want to be is a cameraman, and or whatever it might be. And we've got various edit suites, where we do editing, and quite often someone will say, well, I want to be an editor, and you take on interns. And they actually find you give them a kind of a bit of experience in different parts of the industry, and they actually find, I don't want to be an editor at all, but I'm passionate about this industry. And then they find out, well, actually, I much prefer being artist liaison or whatever it might be. And so try not to get too transfixed on a particular job. All you have to do is find that passion for an industry and then just stick with it. Don't take no for an answer. Is the other big thing, because you'll be told no a lot, and that happens to all people all the time. We've been told no a lot for the Royal Variety Show this year, but you just have to keep going, and don't take no for an answer, and believe in what you're doing. Believe in it, and remember that why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And rejection is something that I think we do struggle with, particularly the Brits. I think we do struggle with that. We're very conscious of being rejected and very conscious. Our egos are a little fragile at times. So I do tell a lot of my clients to, be resilient and just keep asking until they come out with some expletive and tell you to get lost or something equivalent to that. And I think it's great advice. So thanks for that, Giles. And again, thanks ever so much for joining me today. So much we covered there. And maybe hopefully I'll meet you face to face one day and we can look back on 2020, the year that was.
I look forward to it, Phil. Pleasure to meet you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Giles. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.